Hello, dear readers. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm Kate, and I am the author of Soul Primer, Building Blocks of the Soul, the book that we've all been journeying through for the last 20 weeks or more. And I'm excited to be here with you today, and I welcome you to our Soul Journey Snapshots, which is where we all gather from around the world, around our virtual campfire, and we meet our fellow trailmates. And today I'm very excited to introduce to you one of my three authors in Soul Primer. This is Susan Cohen Thompson, and Susan created a third of the artwork in Soul Primer, and I have to say that she created all of those wonderful letters with all the leafy, funny hair do's, like that one. I love X is my favorite. Anyway, so and she did all the artwork that is very kind of watercolory and very nature based. I'm gonna pull one up here for you. It's very organized here. This is beautiful. So this is a huge painting that she has on her wall from her one of her shamanic adventures, which I'm hoping she'll tell us a little bit about. But anyway, Susan does gorgeous artwork, and so I was so honored that she was willing to participate in Soul Primer. And the way those letters came about is we had agreed to work together, and she said, well, I'm going to be on vacation. I think she was going to Florida for a week. And I said, all right, we'll talk when you come back. And when she came back, she said, oh, I have a surprise for you. And it's not like we knew each other before this. We had just started to become friends, through this project. She said, I have a surprise for you. And I said, oh, really? What? She said, I doodled all the letters. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Because I was just going to use like regular font for the book. And she created all these beautiful letters for the book, just out of the goodness of her heart. So anyway, I love Susan, and I'm excited for you all to meet her here today. Susan Cohen Thompson, welcome.
Thank you. This is great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for being available. So Susan, tell the readers a little bit about yourself. By the way, for those of you who have made it to the back of the book, there is a one-page bio of Susan, and it also itemizes the different art pieces that are hers. But I'm sure you've seen as you go through, there's certain ones that have one look and certain ones have another look. So the beautiful watercolory nature ones are Susan's. And yeah, anyway, so Susan, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into art originally? This one's hers, by the way. Isn't that beautiful?
I know, it's all about trees.
It is. I love that. I'm a total tree person. You know that. But anyway, so tell us a little bit about your background, first of all.
Okay. Well, I'm from New York, and my family took me to museums like all through my childhood. And so, we were kind of in the city, I think my parents, my family just wasn't really nature oriented at all. So aside from little vacations in the car, my interpretation of nature and my vision of nature came to me through art in the museums. And this is a really big part of the connection between nature and art for me. It's like art, in my view, sort of opens the door to nature, to connecting with nature. And that was my way. I would look, we'd go to even the natural history museums in New York City, and I would look at all the, taxidermied animals and stuff. And that was my nature. And I was always kind of on the outside of it. There was always like this glass in front, even when we were driving in the car, there was always like this glass barrier, and nature was on the other side. So there was this real feeling of separate. Separate from the world, there's always this glass in front, looking at the dioramas at the museum. Nature was in there. It was on the other side of the glass. And my artwork, it turns out, is all about interconnection. And so it was like me coming, when I moved to the Northwest, where I live now, and how we know each other, stepping into the forest as an adult, really, I was completely surrounded by nature, and it just changed everything. So, you know, we walk in the woods, you know, that'll get into the whole, you know, so I have always been an artist. I've always done my art. My whole career was doing art and doing display and design work. But the art, it was always about the art ever since I was a kid. So
That's awesome. And I love that. I mean, that's just so ties into N is for nature, you know, in the book, which of course is so transformative, right? You know, and like you say, seeing it behind a window or on the screen or whatever is not the same as getting out there in there. There's that energy of the nature that just is beautiful. And it definitely is something that's very special about your art, is that you feel that energy of nature come through your artwork.
it's about like nature from the inside. It's like I imagine myself as a tree, you know.
Yeah,
I've had people tell me that I was a tree, you know, I perceived that I was a tree,
me
you
too.
know. I say, oh, I spent like you know, in another lifetime, I was like a tree for 500 years, you know. And so, but so that, I know you were going to ask me about shamanic.
Yeah. So
There's a
yes, for
whole,
sure. Because I mean, I totally relate to the trees. I talk to trees all the time. I love my tree friends. So, and I know one of the things we have in common, in addition to loving nature and art, is that we both have a pretty strong shamanic background. And just before you start telling us a little bit about yours, you know, some people don't know what a shaman is, but a shaman is just a term for a medicine man or a medicine woman, particularly of the indigenous cultures. However, I've worked with shamans myself, and I have been told it's okay for me to, you know, use that term even as a non-indigenous person. So anyway, so yeah, Susan and I connected also early on with her shamanic experiences. So tell us a little bit about your adventures in that realm.
so when I started hiking in the Northwest, I think we would go on hikes, my husband and I, even before we were married. That was kind of, we connected through the trees. And we'd go on these hikes, and we would come back from the hike, and I would say, oh, you know, there's all this stuff going on with the forest, like the trees are communicating with each other and they can see us. And you know, I would have all this information that I didn't particularly have when I went for the walk.
Hmm.
But on coming back from the walk, I would have all this thing, and I'm going to paint about it. So I did these paintings of trees, and it was about like experiencing it, like, I had red hair, you know, I had this whole series on women with magenta hair, and she would go into the forest, and she would actually go into a tree and like learn about being a tree, and then come out. And so I did all this artwork that was, you know, related to these stories that I had about being one, you know, merging with trees and then coming out and then speaking about it and painting about it. And so I was doing these paintings, and I had an exhibition, and I was talking about these going into the forest and coming out with new information and then painting about it. And one of the people in the audience of this talk that I gave said, do you journey? You know, do you ever go on journeys? You know, do you know about shamanism? And I said, no, I don't know anything about that. You know, this is just something I do. And they said, well, you're going on this, you're doing shamanic journeying, and your paintings are like speaking it. And so I started studying it after that. I said, well, I don't know how to do that, you know. So they said, well, we'll teach you how. You know, I'm still kind of interesting on my journeys, but so I do go, and journeying is just like, it's like dreaming while you're awake. It's like lucid dreaming while you're awake, kind of. It's like, okay, where would I like to go? What, you know? So I studied with John Perkins, who's quite well-known author. And we went to the Amazon in a group called Dream Change Coalition. You know, that was sort of like a fast forward. I started doing the shamanic stuff. Then I started actually studying it. And then I went into the Amazon rainforest, so that it was like getting a signal. I have so much to say about this. I know we only have a few minutes.
Oh,
So,
yeah, no, that's interesting.
It was like there was this signal that was coming at me from a distance, and it was like really like static. I thought, I think there's more that we could go into nature and like really understand nature. It's like nature is trying to speak to humanity. And the signal, because of our urban environment, the signal is really staticky. The trees the trees in the city are kind of abused. And so I wanted to go to a place where they weren't. Where on earth to go where nature was allowed to speak its mind and be respected for what it had to say,
and the signal had no
and the signal would be clear.
Yeah. Where the Amazon's a prime place for that.
Yeah. So that was a life-changing experience. That was in 1998, was the first trip we went, and it was to go and learn, and to experience people who had never been disconnected from nature.
Yeah.
And to understand that. So that's sort of the beginning of it.
That's so beautiful. And we chatted a little bit before, and we talked about, one of the things that Susan and I know is that, we're all interconnected, and not just as people, but we're all interconnected with Earth and with the trees and with the birds and with the, all of life, the animals. And I was telling Susan a little bit about an experience I had with an owl recently, and once you start being aware and awake to those connections. I mean, some of you have probably heard my story about the red fox, which came to me in a dream where he was observing me give birth. And 2 weeks later, I started writing this book, so I mean, there was a spiritual element of this giving birth, and I had the red fox watching me. Red fox is a symbol of feminine creative energy and how it can positively impact a shape-shifting world. So when you start to be awake, you start to see all those interconnections. Now, I've never been to the Amazon. I mean, that I can't even imagine how intense that would be. Was it scary?
I was so terrified,
Okay.
So one of our guides said, think about, so we'd go down these like muddy, I am not a very physical, I never was brought up in nature,
You're a New York girl.
And, walking on uneven I was always on pavement, Yeah. So walking on uneven ground and going deep into the, I don't know how to swim, it's just like all this stuff. That to perceive nature as caressing. So we're walking in the mud, it's like on this one path in the jungle, and our guide goes, he said, think of the mud as caressing your feet where you walk. Like change your idea about it, like let it come into you sort of, and experience it that way. It just was really transformative, and trust, I think.
Yeah.
And all this, it's fun. You were talking about the owl, before we got on, and it reminded me, like nature will respond to our desires. Yeah. Like there was I had gone to visit somebody, and they had in their flower boxes, in one of their flower boxes in their house, outside their house, there was a little nest, and you could see the birds and everything, all this activity. And I thought, oh God, I have flower boxes at my house, and I've never even thought of having a nest. I want one. Yeah. I would really like to have a nest I was very specific. I had this idea, wouldn't it be great to have a nest where you could see it and see the activity going on and see, and within a day, this was so incredible. Within a day, I was looking at I was watering the flowers in one of our boxes, and I thought, what's all this dirt all kicked up? What's going on here? It was like the next day after I had, imagined that it would be cool to have a nest.
Yeah.
And within a few days, a little nest appeared. And, the bird I could see, and it was just like, it was the most incredible thing, because I thought, how is this possible that I could ask, that I could just say, oh, I wish for a nest in my flower box when I, never thought about one before. And then it would appear within days. It's just like, what,
the thing is, again, when because you've become so connected, like my story with the owl. I was told that an owl would appear in my life, and a week later, and I'm like, yeah, right.
right.
Lived a lot of years and that's not happened, but okay. A week later, it appears in my life, and it's like when you become really connected, not only do these amazing, well, first of all, they say there are no coincidences, there's synchronicities, these things happen, and you start to become aware of them, but also it inspires your creativity because you're connected to all the universe. And by the way, for those of you on our email journey, next week is U is for Universe, where we talk about that connection, where we're all connected, right? And that's where, clearly, you have this beautiful magic in your art, Susan. Your art is just extraordinary, and you can see that you've you're really channeling nature onto, move your, look, I can see.
Oh yeah.
Let's see that beauty. She channels nature onto canvas, or also ceramics. What else do you do?
Drawings, lots of drawings. I did the illustrations for Speaking with Nature, Awakening to the Deep Wisdom of the Earth. I think you can say shamanism is earth wisdom. That's in a way that's kind of acceptable. Like, oh, I can understand that. Right. Nature is sentient. Everything, to me, everything in the universe is aware. It's aware of its surroundings. You couldn't be in the universe without having this, maybe not like we're aware, but it's rich with awareness.
Well, and I think it is. I think when we tap into that same consciousness, which is what we do with our journey, we tap into that same consciousness, we share its awareness, which is why, I was able to write this book. I totally felt like it was downloaded to me. It was a gift, really, from tapping into that consciousness, as is your art, obviously.
I think anyone could do it. It's just sort of like you get your mind out of the way or something like that.
Right.
Because the art is a conversation. It speaks to me.
Yeah.
Only after I've done it will I even really be able to see that, oh, this relates to, I have to do it, and it has to reveal itself to me.
Yeah, I totally get that. I do that.
How I connect.
Well, and that's like all the poetry I write, the poetry in the book and my other poetry. It's like I just open myself and connect, and then it just comes to me. I don't stop and think, oh, sure, I might have to go and edit it so that it makes sense. There's the right commas in the right places, but yeah, so it's connecting to nature. And I loved what you said earlier about how we are surrounded by really so much interference or static, I think you said. So if you think of like a radio connection, if they're static, you can't really hear it.
You can't really hear it. And so if you can tune out the static by whatever means and open yourself up to it. I think it's about opening neural pathways. There's all these connection of I was connecting here on the internet, and there's this web of connections. And if we can open up our channels to those radio stations, so to speak, of connecting, then all this stuff will come flooding in,
That's such beautiful information, because I know in hearing from a lot of you readers out there that you're trying to tap into your creative energies, and you're starting to awaken into even writing poetry, and doing art on different artwork and different things than you've done before. So this is just a process. You just start waking up, you start becoming aware, and it all happens like magic, really.
I think that the soul primer, it's like opening up, shifting neural pathways to this beautiful, understanding.
Yeah, and connection. Yeah.
And connection. Everything's about the connection.
Susan, I love you so much. I knew we'd take way more than 10 minutes. I'm sorry, you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. But it's awesome to see you. We all miss seeing each other in person. We were talking about that earlier, and honestly, Susan's art is gorgeous in person, but she also has a website. So we're going to put links to your website and your Instagram and social media and stuff down below. And Susan was telling me that in her Instagram, she does a lot more like processes, like you show how you're forming ceramics and stuff. Is that
yeah, talking about it or showing things that are partially done, I mean, the website, everything is really kind of, I'm working on the website all the time, and working on getting my statement, connected to the pieces. It's like, okay, here's what here in the titles. I'm really into the titles of the pieces. So, my website, is an ever-changing kind of fun thing, and I love connecting with people.
Yeah, and honestly, I can tell you, because I've walked through Susan's studio. She has her art all spread throughout her house as well. And I've walked through all of it, and every single piece I look at it and I go, oh my gosh, oh wow. So really spectacular stuff. And I hope that some of it comes through in the book and on the wall there, but really take a look at her website. What were you going to say?
This one's called Made of the Cosmos.
Oh, I love it.
It's MAID, but MADE.
Yeah, nice. I love it. So, okay, so we're gonna put links down below. And Susan, we'll chat more later. Readers, I hope that
You're wonderful, Kate. Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us around our virtual.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.